Hey there, everybody. Welcome to our review of The Handmaid's Tale Season 4, Episode 9, the penultimate episode of the season. There is a lot that went on here. I am pretty heated about a couple of things, I'm not gonna lie.
Thoughts and prayers, Fred. Thoughts and prayers.
Fred! You better be ready, Storm. There's a storm a-coming, Fred, that's gonna hit you like nobody's business in this video.
It's the Matt train. Here it comes.
The Matt train has left the station. It's picking up. Coco is here to try to calm me down.
Toot toot.
Okay, dog, don't say toot toot when you're in my lap because I know what happens with you. But okay, well, we're not gonna do fart humor less than a minute into a Handmaid's Tale review.
Or are we?
Apparently we are. Well, anyway, if you guys do enjoy this trip down crazy train land that is going to be this video, hit that subscribe button because, you know, we are really close to 50,000 subscribers at the time of recording this.
Yeah, we are under 100 subscribers away. It's unbelievable, and it's really wonderful.
Yeah, we're so eternally grateful to everyone, so thank you to everyone who is supporting us, and yeah, hit that button because we're not done yet. The Handmaid's Tale train is going for at least one more episode this season.
Yeah, and we're also covering Bachelorette, if you're watching that, and then Bachelor in Paradise this summer. There's all kinds of stuff coming up.
Okay, so are you ready to talk about Fred?
Yep, I was going to ask where you wanted to start, but I feel like I know. Let's talk about Fred.
Here's the thing. I have made my
weasel Fred.
I have made my hatred of Fred abundantly clear, but there's another person who I'm putting on the list in this video. Mark Truello or Tuello. I don't know how to pronounce your last name, but you know what? It doesn't matter. You suck. Like really, okay, this is one of the biggest reasons why, and I'm not just saying this because Mark is like arranging a deal with Fred, but how do you know that Fred is going to tell you the truth about anything? Fred could agree to this deal and then basically be like, in Gilead, what we're actually doing is we're harvesting gummy bears and we're putting them into the ground and then we're having a gummy bear picnic that happens once a month. Like, how can you actually buy into anything this guy is saying?
How can you make Gilead all of a sudden sound all right?
That's my point.
Okay, this is probably what Canada and Mark is going to do, is they are going to find a way to verify this stuff.
I sure hope so. I have serious trust issues with like 90% of everything I saw and heard in this episode.
This whole thing with Fred flipping is not surprising, and Mark sort of using this to get the bigger fish. This is not the first time we've ever seen this on a show.
No.
Or a show about government trying to get to the bigger fish or police trying to get to the bigger fish. This is not at all surprising. And after he had that talk with one of the other commanders, realizing that thoughts and prayers is all he's getting, that no one has done anything to try to get him back, that they are looking at the bigger picture and Fred is not part of that. It makes me really wonder if Fred is actually flipping, or he's just kind of like, okay, I need to find a way to get out of here so I can get back to my life. Like, what is really going on? That's why I'm very excited for this finale, because we know that he felt very betrayed when he was told that they're not really trying. But he feels like he is really entrenched in this Gilead life. Yeah. He wants to go back and be part of this.
It's just why I don't believe, I cannot believe or accept any idea that Fred is going to try to be a better person or help anyone. And it's just,
a better person? No, he's trying to help himself.
Fred is a big enough fish. Fred is a big, smelly, like, rotten fish that you, like, catch in some poisoned pond. It's like, you don't need to rely on anything he says to go any further. And yes, Fred is totally just out to try to help himself.
He is, and I mean, the whole thing of it sucks. Like, obviously there needs to be some sort of justice for everything that Fred has done in this life in Gilead, and everything he's done to June, everything he's done to everybody. He's a terrible human being. I do understand Mark feeling like he can get information to get more commanders, because Fred is not the only person who's doing terrible, horrible, awful things. And if there is a way to get more than just Fred, Mark wants to do that.
This is going to pain me to say. I understand where a lot of characters in this episode are coming from, where as much as I want to boo you off stage, Mark, I understand your idea of trying to
as much as you want to. You totally booed him off the stage already.
Well, okay, you know what? I don't regret it either, because I'm mad at you, Mark. But I do logically understand your purpose. It's like, I understand where a number of characters are. I even understand Fred if he is actually being super salty about the fact that nobody cares about him at all. I did take great pleasure in him just like being super delusional with Serena. It was like, oh, they will come, they will help me. So it's like, no, they're not, Fred. Shut up. Like, I enjoyed that.
Yeah, that conversation with Serena after she had already talked to Naomi about sort of what's going on back there. Fred is really delusional.
Yes.
And sort of after he's realized that he doesn't really have that much power and people aren't really coming for him, to even have Serena have to remind him, like, what power do you have, Fred? Your own other group of commanders don't care enough about you to even open up negotiation. Like, they didn't even try. They are just letting you go, all the best, hopes and prayers, and we'll see you when we see you kind of thing. Now, that conversation with Serena and Naomi was also very telling, because one of the things that, obviously we saw Serena writing and we saw Naomi look down and see that that's happening. It feels like that's going to come back around again if Serena ends up back down in Gilead. However, one of the things that Naomi said that I thought was very interesting was sort of this idea that because she's a wife that got pregnant, and she's not the first wife that has gotten pregnant on the show, but she's sort of the first one that they would really be celebrating and would be a hero coming back to the other wives. The commanders are not going to want this. They don't want to have a pregnant wife or a wife with power or someone who is celebrated, because then the rest of the wives are going to be like, all right, well, if Serena can get pregnant, then so can all of we. That means that this infertile thing that you guys have been selling us so that you can do all this with the handmaids and make us part of this is all a lie. And we know that it is.
Yeah.
So if they're all starting to be like, oh, Serena is pregnant, she's the hero, she's coming back pregnant, we can all do it, get these handmaids out of here, it changes everything. And no commanders want that.
This scene with Serena and Naomi to me is another reminder that Serena, like, what makes Serena so dangerous is that obviously she's very manipulative, but she's also very, very smart. Like, in this scene alone, she picks up on so many different things, including, Naomi suddenly sort of being like, we can take care of the baby for you just while you're away. It's like, come on, Serena's like, no, I see what you're doing here, Naomi. Like, she picks up on everything so quickly. She realizes that Fred is expendable. She realizes that she is expendable to the point where she will not get to be a wife if Fred is still up there. She's going to be a handmaid, and she knows it.
Yes, which is something that we kind of talked about in our last review, and then it was in the preview a little bit that she is worried about that. We saw now Mrs. Keys is a handmaid.
Yeah.
The women in Gilead can be moved into any position they want. The wives feel like they are the ones with the most power, but they really don't have any still. It's just like this imaginary power because they're married to a commander. But we've seen wives. Serena is an example of losing her finger for reading, and Fred was like, whatever, if it has to go this way, it has to go this way. There's no protection and there is no power. So Serena should be worried. She's fertile. If she goes back without a husband, Mrs. Keys does not have a husband. She is a handmaid now.
I am really, really curious to see what Serena does in the finale. Like, perhaps more so than any other character, because she has, this idea of this baby, which is representative of joy in a lot of ways, but with this comes this attachment of, because I am pregnant and I don't know what's going to happen to Fred, like me going back to Gilead would be a problem. Me staying here might be a problem. Like, what situation or road can Serena go right now that is not a problem for her?
Yeah, right now she's very worried that wherever she is, if she's in Canada, that they're going to take her baby from her and the baby will go into the system or into another home. And if she goes back to Gilead, now we know Naomi's already like, I'm going to take your baby, or Gilead's going to take your baby. So she's in a tough spot, but I don't think anybody really feels sorry for her because she's just a terrible human being.
No, I think that's the way that everything has sort of been set up here, is where the show can pretty much do whatever they want with either Serena or Fred, and I think a lot of us are going to be like, you know what? They deserve to have some bad stuff happen to them after everything horrible they've done to June and the other handmaids through 4 seasons.
Yeah, and it looks like their support is growing in Canada. We saw in the last episode where it was quite large, the group of people out there, larger than I believe after Fred's very short little outburst in court. It didn't feel like it was enough to have that many people there. It was very strange. But anyways, we saw more of that support coming in. People sending little commander suits, which just like gave me a pit in my stomach. I was like, oh my God.
Who makes those? But yeah, there should be no commander suits. There should be no costumes whatsoever of anything in Gilead up in Canada. I think it really, I guess, speaks to the idea of people get this like distorted psychology, especially when they don't even really understand the truth. Like, I wonder, some of these people in Canada who are like pro Gilead, like, do they actually really understand what is going on?
Yeah, there were women out there holding signs. You would not be able to protest in Gilead. No. You would not be able to write that sign. You can't even read what's on your sign. Like, it's very strange. They should just be there, like, sitting with a blank sign. Like, it's very strange.
Let's get into the June of it all in this episode, because I think there's some powerful stuff with June this time around. I mean, clearly she's upset with Mark, and just like I understand why Mark may have done what he did.
June will never understand, and I completely get where she's coming from. Luke will never understand. Moira will not. Nobody who's on the other side of it understands what Mark is doing. Like, I get that they want intelligence, but there's no justice in this.
And June's whole story, this entire episode, is her being so desperate for even just anything when it comes to Hannah that she's willing to meet up with Nick, who, I know she's got a certain amount of trust built up with Nick, but there's still a risk of meeting up with Nick where, is Nick going to be followed by some legion of commanders, or is something else going to happen to her? But she's so intent on trying to get information on Hannah that she takes a little bit of this risk.
Yeah, and it was a very difficult scene to see Luke asking this of her. Now, I've said before, and I'll say again, the two of them are eventually, when they are ready, going to have a conversation about Nick.
Yeah.
Because June sent him a tape saying that their baby was born in love, that there is something there with Nick. So she's been able to say her side of how she feels and what was going on. Luke has been able to say nothing. He has no conversation with June yet. Now is not the time for it. There's still healing and a lot of stuff going on with June, so not the time. But Luke also needs to be able to talk about it. And I'm not saying like ring the bell of shame or anything like that. I'm just saying have a real conversation about it so that he can say how he's feeling. That we don't know how he's feeling. He may be feeling, I don't like it, but I'm glad there was somebody there for you. We don't know. But that conversation clearly needs to happen. Because when Luke was asking her to do this, to meet up with Nick, to find out if there's a way to get Hannah back, you could see that there is just intense pain in asking for that. Even when June says, you want me to meet up with Nick? And he's like, no, I don't want you to meet up with Nick. But what other choice, is there right now? This is just where I am.
It's hard. There's a lot of heartache there, and once again, I understand where Luke is coming from in this position. He's trying to.
This is a season of Luke.
Yeah, it really is. We have more of an insight into his head, where I think he's got a lot of survivor's guilt being up in Canada for so long,
and no help.
Yeah. And hasn't really, and I think we even see that with here's some of the stuff that I've been doing. Here is what I've been trying. I think he's desperate to sort of say, hey, June, look, I really wanted to help. I didn't know how. Here are some ways that I tried to help. Here is how I'm continuing to try to help by being okay with you going and meeting up with Nick. But there's only, I think, so much one person can take. And Luke's going to hit a breaking point. I just don't know if it's going to happen this season.
Yeah, that's why one of the biggest holes in Canada as part of, bringing people in is that there seems to be no real help for anyone. There's no help for Luke or the families that are at home waiting for people to come back on how to deal with it, how to help, how to be stronger to help other people, how to get through their own pain. There's nothing for them. And then we saw in the last episode that there's a group therapy being led by Moira, who is not a licensed therapist. There is no licensed therapist there that's trained to help anybody. It's kind of just to help yourself.
They're all left to their own devices, and that's a really difficult place to be when you've experienced great trauma and you don't have anything to really stand on. And if you're tied to someone who's gone through great trauma, you don't know how to help them. You don't know how to help yourself. All Luke knows is, okay, this is an opportunity to get some more information on Hannah. And while, Nick was basically it's impossible to get Hannah out of there, he did show up with photos and information.
It was very interesting to see that scene where, Luke was getting ready to watch her leave and kind of following her very tightly, he's afraid that if she left, she was never going to come back.
Yeah.
And that moment that she drove away and she had a smile on her face and she knew she was going to see Nick, I mean, there was a moment that I was kind of okay, here's the bit of joy that she does seem to still have, which is seeing Nick. So when she saw Nick, there was a moment, and I didn't think it was going to happen, but there was a moment that I actually thought that Nick had arranged, maybe with the help of Lawrence or something like that, to offer her, if she wanted to, this is going to be controversial, to be his wife, to come down and be a commander's wife as an opportunity to get to Hannah, because the wives have the smallest amount of power, that there might be a way that together, a commander and a wife, we'd be able to get Hannah and both of them leave. Not asking her to come back to be hey, you know what, this is the only way we can be together, so let's do it. But as a plan, as soon as he gave her this file and was this is everything I found, that was the moment that I was he's gonna he has organized something to give her this crappy opportunity, but it's an opportunity just the same to come back, have a little bit of power. Together, they'll get her out, and that will sort of be the wrap up of that story. And then he pulled out that ring.
I hadn't thought about what you just suggested yet, but why couldn't they have done that? Because that would have been that would have actually been more interesting to me, because then it is then you're asking Luke to have to go through something else, the idea of June having to basically be with Nick in another place back in Gilead. It's a way to sort of bring Gilead back to the forefront of the story again, and I know that's something that the two of us have sort of wondered.
I think it was just, the thing about it is, the plot armor would just be too thick on June. If they would bring her back, if she doesn't end up on the wall, then none of this makes any sense. That there would have to be some serious strings pulled to have her be a wife.
And I don't know if it would be possible, but there's just some people in Gilead who are strictly really just beyond terrible, and then there's also people who I can't ever get a really good read on, because I think, Commander Lawrence sucks, but at the same time, he's also someone who is he's nuanced in what he does, and he clearly has sort of his own separate end game that's not exactly the easiest to pin down.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was the last episode where he was talking to Aunt Lydia, or 2 episodes ago, where he was just nobody likes you. And I get it. Nobody likes me either. And it's kind of it's very hard to pin down, kind of in some ways like Aunt Lydia. Like, where does she really land on things?
Yeah, because she had a moment with Janine in this episode. She's had moments with Janine in the past as well. It's like there's something there. It's not exactly much of enough of anything to make it like Lydia worthwhile.
She's awful, but yes, she does have some sort of care for Janine. And so what I was hoping for is that Janine was going to come back into, if she has to go back into service, that she was going to find a way to sort of manipulate the situation so that she can have a little bit of, power to be able to make changes as well. We saw her with Mrs. Keys, who was being defiant. She's not eating. She's not whatever. And Janine was the person who was able to kind of be like, listen, they're not going to kill you. They're just going to keep doing this until you do what they say, sort of thing. Janine has been the most adaptable character on this show. Wherever she is able to adapt to a situation to make it work somewhat in her favor so that she can get through things. She is the ultimate survivor.
She is, and I wish that the Janine story was moving just like a little bit faster, because that's the one issue I probably had with this episode, is that basically Janine's whole story is trying to get through to Mrs. Keys to a certain extent, and she does, but I'm just sort of sitting here thinking, okay, where's Janine gonna go by the end of this season? Like, how are we gonna get her in the same orbit as June or some other characters?
Yeah, I mean, there was a moment where Mrs. Keys came around and they were both standing in front of the aunt, and they looked at each other for just a second where it looked like maybe Janine and Mrs. Keys have had some kind of understanding that they are both playing the long game, that they are doing this so that they can, as she said, get out of this alive when things change. Meaning, maybe Janine is going to bring change.
I hope that she's able to find a way to do so. I think in general, this is like the biggest challenge this finale has moving forward, is that, okay, June's gotten some information on Hannah. She's now back with Luke. She's found out this truth about Fred, that Fred is supposedly going to try to help. I do not believe Fred at all, but how are they going to tie up anything and sort of set up what season 5 is going to be?
Well, they also still haven't brought up the possibility that Fred could actually be Nicole's father, that it might not actually be Nick. And that, is Fred going to ask for a paternity test? I mean, I feel like if he's helping Mark, he may actually be able to ask for something like this. It doesn't mean that June's gonna give it, but they really haven't brought up that Fred may actually be the father. If he was able to get Serena pregnant, he may be the father.
Handmaid's Tale gods, or Bruce Miller. It's 23 minutes into this video. I don't know if you're watching, but you know what? Don't make Fred the father, please.
No, come on, Bruce, please.
Don't do it. June has gone through enough. We have gone through enough. I am still having to wrap my head around the possibility that Fred freaking Waterford is not going to get what he deserves. I cannot also have the idea of Fred being the father to Nicole. It will emotionally break me and leave me distraught.
No, I mean, this show is really good at, when they do give hope, they give a good amount of hope. That there is, seeing June driving away to go and see Nick and having sort of that smile, there is a relief that comes with that, to know that June has something.
Yeah, she has something. She's gone through a lot. Nick offered her something more. I gave her at least a sense of, okay, this is where Hannah is.
Yep.
Like, we had a decent amount of hope here or there. Granted, we also had a tremendously large, understandable amount of rage. I mean, Elizabeth Moss directed this episode. How do you direct yourself in the final 5 seconds of this episode to do that? I have no idea.
Directing yourself is one of the absolute most difficult things that an actor can do, and she has been fantastic at doing this. It is a very hard balance.
Yeah. I really liked this episode a lot, despite my various question marks, most of them about Fred. But anyway, what did you guys think about The Handmaid's Tale Season 4, Episode 9? Where do you think we're going in this finale? Let us know your thoughts, your theories, and if you did enjoy this video, give us a like, subscribe, and support us further by checking those links to the store, our Patreon, and we'll see you here next time.